My name is Franco. I am the infrasound guy. I was here last year to talk to you about elephants and ultra-low frequency sound, something I'm clearly very obsessed about. And we use these sounds to pull elephants into new areas and to keep them away from trouble. It works. We've got a working prototype. I'm going to give you an update on all of these things. This is a solution that we're very, very excited about, and it's proving to be useful for more than elephants as well. Now, I'm going to be going through what we've been developing and the vision that we have for this 1,000-kilometer migration route in northern South Africa. But first, I need to put the cart in front of the horse in terms of telling you how we are informed to design these specific sounds that we use in the wild. You see, I now need to put myself in a wannabe ecologist perspective, because I look up to everybody here and I think, how do I consider the sounds that are already there in the area? I'm going to be making sounds to pull elephants into new areas and to keep them away from trouble. So how do I actually consider what's already in the area? This is an incredibly important perspective. So we decided, okay, well, we've got this requirement to figure out how we can study the landscape and how we can study the biodiversity in a particular area. Now, for me, this begins by listening. And listening to all of the audio signatures that are in this immediate area. And I thought it's important to go and listen to everything that's around, and not just for a little bit of time, from when we start until forever. We want to listen permanently to figure out what's going on. So it begins with a 24/7 monitoring solution, something that can keep listening to the immediate area of this device. And then we think to ourselves, well, then we need to start figuring out how to classify what we hear. And this is technology that's available. But it's not always so effective in the South African conditions. So we decided we were going to write our own classifier so that we can use this in our own way. And we want to eventually use a device like this to be able to present something like a pelagic tree that we've got here so that we can understand the biodiversity that exists. And that way we can work around that and start building our own sounds without stepping on the toes of all the different birds and the species that are around in this area. This is my team, my gentlemen, and we're very excited to see exactly how this technology can be used or bounced around in this team, because we are musicians, we are data scientists, architects, and wannabe ecologists with real ecologists friends that we make here at the Thicket Forum. And what I mean by our unique skill set is what happens when we take this type of technology, we build a database. This database is then used to find a potential match as these recordings come in. So recording of a bird comes in, it gets matched to a very curated database, and inside all of the samples of each of the species that we have in this database, we have what is called a prime sample. So there you have a raw sample of this bird, the black-headed oriole, and then you have a clean sample, which you can already see is somewhat cleaner. We take standard audio production techniques, so studio production techniques, to clean up this sound. You know, if you have to record in the field, or if you just record with something that's got a little bit of noise in it, it's not uncommon for studio musicians to go and clean up that particular audio signal. So what happens when we take this type of skill set and we increase our capabilities of building this database with these prime samples, which we can weight then with a little bit of extra consideration, a little bit of extra priority, so that we can make sure that, okay, we've got consideration for animal individuality. We've got a consideration for distance from the microphone. We've got a consideration for wind conditions, as well as Doppler effect. Ray spoke about the fact that they fly. What if they're flying past your microphone? We've got to have a very clean prime sample so that we can expand on those parameters and allow the detection device to become more accurate. So how does this technology respond when we put it into machine learning? We've coded our own program. We made sure that it is specific for the South African condition, which means basically we're focusing on our species and the species that visit us from other continents. And also, how does the requirement for a stable, clean, reliable audio source that has to run 24/7, how does architecture respond to the need for putting this sensitive technology inside a shell? Now, where we've deployed this device is inside a regenerated grassland. This grassland is part of the Igoli granite grassland. This is considered an endangered vegetation type. So these guys decided to biomimic some of the bird shells, the bird eggs, excuse me, that are in the area. And they wanted to double insulate these bird eggs and also weave a nest of the grass that's in that area by hand to put it atop this first insulated layer. And it is incredibly effective at shielding the device from wind noise and from excess temperature. So we're shielding it from UVs, we're shielding it from wind noise, and we've been running this device for quite some time now. So of course, the first indicator group of species that are available to us, and they make a lot of noise as well as they're very pertinent to the ecology of this area, is of course birds. So we've started with birds, all of the birds around our area, and this has formed our initial deployment of what we call a land ear. This device and the setup that we've got can automatically generate reports. So I've decided that each of the reports will have the emblem of the province that you're in. That also helps us to understand exactly what the vegetation types are. And these reports will then be automatically sent to you every month. We wanted to make it as automated as possible and as reliable as possible. And once again, it's permanently recording everything all the time. Inside of this report, you'll have a soundscape profile. Now, this soundscape profile will have all of your birds, of course, but also it can contain any natural environmental sounds. It'll tell you what the ratio of those sounds are to your bird detections, as well as any human-made sounds. We're working on the frogs and the insects right now, and also stuff like firearm discharge, glass breaking. Anything that can be recorded and profiled can be part of your specific soundscape profile. You know, if you are particularly concerned about fireworks, for example, we can make sure that we detect those and put them in your soundscape profile. And then you have your full bird index. So you'll have your full species index of each of the birds that we've detected. And we've decided to go with a full list. The color coding that we have there is green if it's part of your baseline species. So we'll do a ecological survey, not me. One of you will probably ask someone here to come and do the baseline. And then we'll enter that baseline into our model so that if it matches to that, it'll come up as green. If it is orange, it'll be the first time that we've detected in this area. And if it's purple, it means that it's actually rather unlikely to have it, so it might be a rarity. And in that case, you might want to actually go and do a stakeout with your Swarovskis. Now, well, the second page of this report also has this bird activity overview, which means that we're looking at the birds that vocalize the most. So you'll have a list of the birds that are picked up the most. Obviously, the crested barbet is nesting in this particular area, so we hear it all the time. It's very close to the microphone. But anybody who's ever been to Gauteng will know that the bird that you hear the most is, of course, the hadida. So we found that out to be right at the top every single time. So with today's technology, we have the capability of entering all the threat level information and also the distribution for each of the species. So you'll have a graph like in this particular place. We have no threatened birds yet. So once you do, then that will come up and you'll have a pie chart or a donut chart here with an indication of how many of your birds are near threatened or endangered. And then the category distribution over here as well. You can see the native, the introduced, endemic. And we've also now started looking at particularly nocturnal birds and things like that. We also have an environmental activity correlation chart. So this means that we can look at all this bird activity and we can tell you exactly what the temperature and the humidity was during those detections. So this is the sort of overview that you get in your report. We'll also give you a maximum and a minimum temperature for the last 30 days after the report's been generated. We have the wind speed and we have an air density sensor inside this device as well, which helps us to figure out exactly how far we listened and potentially where it was tricky to listen because the wind was potentially going in a different direction. We also include an air quality index meter, which in this case is okay. But we have also seen that near urbanized environments like factories or airports, that the air quality index can be quite alarming. And I know that everybody here is probably far better suited for finding research applications for this type of device, but one of the many thoughts is bird activity versus air quality. You know, I think I'd love to see a study on that, for example. Now, what we wanted to do is go one step further than passive acoustic monitoring by building a real-time dashboard that you can log into. So because it's real-time, it's recording 24/7. That means that you've got a system that you can log into, and then you can go and look at it. So this is a screenshot that I've taken of our dashboard. You can set your location here right at the top, and your date range all the way from the first day that you deployed this device. You can see at a glance your unique species count, the active species that we picked up in the last 30 days, the total detections. Now this is in Midrand. So I think we often see roughly, you know, a couple thousand detections per month. And in an area here in the Eastern Cape, I expect that to double because we have a lot more diversity here and also more open air spaces. You've got your most active species there, and that pie chart will change as you see the new detections coming in on your live dashboard. And then once again, you have the bird species count according to all the different activity. And once again, we'll see the Harida ibis being the bird that you hear the most in this particular area. Directly underneath that is a very important part of this system. This system allows you to go and search all of the different detections. If you want to search detections for one particular bird, you can type that species in. It'll give you all the detections for it. You've also got all of the different categories for those birds and the different threat levels. So you can search, for example, on all the nocturnal birds or the introduced birds. So in this case, you'll have all the rose-ringed parakeets and the lovebirds in Joburg that are kind of taking over. And if you select that there, you'll get all of their detections. Then you've got each of the detections themselves, which you can now download, and you can send that to a fellow ecologist or a real one. And you can also play it, and you can vet it. So you can play that particular detection. It's already come through to tell you it's a rose-ringed parakeet. Now you can play it to make sure that it is in fact a rose-ringed parakeet. And if it isn't, you can go and correct it there at the top. So you can say, no, this is actually a rosy-faced lovebird. Or no, this was a non-event, this was a human making a noise. All of these things are possible because as you do this, you actually sharpen up this device. So we've embedded that correct species drop-down with lots of non-human events. So you can say this was a gate squeaking, it was a forklift. We have a forklift on the site that sounds exactly like a cuckoo. So we managed to actually work around this forklift that's constantly confusing our device. So that's how you actually keep this device refining itself on the area. Now, this is my favorite part, is the environmental correlation. Because we can see all of the bird detections and the activity at the bottom there. And then over the span of time that we selected, and when you change the selection, it'll change this entire graph. But you can see what the temperature and the humidity was doing during all of this bird activity spikes. And what we often see here is just before and after heavy rainfall, we might see quite a lot of bird activity. And then the weather station underneath contains a lot of information that we sort of triangulate with this data collection system. So you'll have all of the satellite information there. You'll have your normal temperature, humidity, and then we have localized temperature and humidity. In this example, that they weren't very different, but they do change quite a lot. So if you have a farm where you've got a wetland somewhere or you have a stream somewhere, you will detect all of the differences from that particular site versus what the satellite information is saying about your general area. So this kind of information could be very, very useful when you're doing a macro or a microclimatic study on, for example, when those seasonal vagrants have arrived from one year to the next. Now, we're busy building all of the rest of the databases. We've got an audible insects database. The frog database is looking pretty good. I love recording stuff underwater. And small mammals make quite a lot of sound. And I know that there are all of these animal groups will have anybody in a continuous search for more data to keep refining the system. But not to worry, in this particular case, we already upwards from an 80% accuracy situation, partly because we've been running this device for 8 months, and partly also because we know the bird life in this particular area. Now, the future vision would be to pepper the subcontinent with these kinds of devices to try and see if we can detect what's going on, across the subcontinent and see what the relationship is between not only the different areas, but also as time passes by, what new things can we learn about not only birds, but basically all of the audible biodiversity in each of these areas. And this is something that recently came up, is a new species of frog. That gentleman in the Midlands went to go, they went to go and find Bilbo's rain frog. And in the process of trying to update the distribution of that one particular frog, they've discovered an entirely new species of frog, which is incredible, and it just goes to show that emerging technology is truly a way for people to strengthen their connection with nature. Now, I have shared this information with other thicketeers, namely Harry Biggs there in the middle, and he said to me, okay, so you're basically this mega capitalist private Seon, which made me giggle and also read up about Seon. And I'm still in the process of communicating with them about how we can collaborate and what we can do with this. But I mean, it's a huge privilege to be here for the second time. And I think bouncing these kinds of ideas and these innovations that spawn from a need that we have with such an amazing group of people is the ultimate opportunity to see where we can deploy this type of technology and how we can further our understanding of nature and coexistence. So, you can see how this type of device would have been ideal for us to start with when we started this initiative of this migration route. Ideally we would have had these devices years ago already to tell us what kind of existing biodiversity is around in this area, and how can we make sure that we're not confusing the messages and conversations between all of the species that are using the airtime there, and make a unique type of sound so that we're making sure that we've got a new vocabulary in speaking with these animals. But hey, the way we did it was all manual, and that kind of process informed how we actually structured this land-air solution. So sometimes you're just going to have to paint the bus while it's driving. Okay, so now I'm going to give you an update on what I spoke about last year, which is actually what you wanted to hear. I just wanted to explain to you what we've been doing in the meantime. So, infrasound is described as sound frequencies below 20 hertz, acoustic energy oscillating below 20 cycles a second. And there's a lot of misconceptions around this. People think that it'll cause you harm, or people think that it will make your building implode. Mostly it is sound energy like anything else, and it conforms to the properties of acoustic energy. There are three ways in which we can actually listen to infrasound. The first is that the whole 20 hertz plinth thing is not a hard boundary. There are lots of reports of people being able to listen below that boundary. Why should one particular number be the end of where we can actually listen to particular frequencies? Maybe we can't hear 21. Maybe some of us are great at hearing 16. It's not a very hard boundary. So it could quite possibly be that you're hearing those frequencies below 20 hertz. The second way that you could be listening to infrasound is this phenomenon called the harmonic series, or the Fourier series. What it means is any acoustic energy, the ocean that we're hearing right now, my irritating voice, all of these things are actually producing harmonics above what is called the fundamental frequency. So there's a profile of frequencies that are built on top of the fundamental frequency that you can also be listening to even if the fundamental frequency is below 20 hertz. And then, of course, the third way in which we could be listening to infrasound is by using more than the membranes of our ears, because we have many membranes in our bodies, and listening is a holistic experience. So you could be feeling it. The primary somatosensory cortex is right next to the auditory brain, and there is cross-speak between those two membranes, and the frequencies themselves completely move through your entire body. So there's three ways for you to actually experience infrasound, and I'm going to be making some of it later for you tonight. Now, I had only 2 of these points here last year, talking about how we're informed to create these sounds that we use to draw elephants into desired positions, and to keep them away from undesired positions or vegetation types. And now I've added the top one here, which means we should be considering the environment that's around this particular infrasonic device. We should make sure that we are not going to disturb the biodiversity that's around there, and definitely not confuse any of the messages that are there. Now we have the solution of this finally, and that is using this land ear device. Secondly, the sounds must be totally unique. Once we know what there is, then how do we actually etch around all of these other signatures and make sure that we make something entirely new? Now, my solution to this is that we delve into the incredible niche of advanced jazz harmony, which is something that is extremely rare. It is absolutely not likely to hear in the wild environment, and it's even very unlikely to hear in any kind of household. Very advanced, seriously challenging, tense harmonies allow us to create these super, super unique signatures, especially once we transcribe them, or transpose them, I should say, into the infrasound realm. So you can take the frequencies of those properties and you can just bring them right down until they are below the 20 hertz mark. And finally, very importantly, especially with people who have large areas, what can we embed in this unique sound that allows the elephant to know where it's going? It needs to figure out where the architecture is that it needs to move towards. We've got an automated gate. If that gate is along a fence line that is kilometers long, how does it go to exactly where that gate is and not 100 meters down and break the fence again? Because that's what we're trying to avoid. What we do here is we actually embed the sounds with wide band frequency. This is a study that they did in the UK where they figured out wide band frequency. I'm talking about pink, white, brown noise. All these frequencies played to you at the same time means all these different wavelengths are hitting your stereoscopic hearing at the same time. Now, that means different wavelengths are coming to you at the same time, which means the two ears that you've got allow you to figure out where the sound is coming from. Ambulances and police cars will have not only a siren, but a burst of wideband frequencies because it allows you to figure out where that vehicle is. And we are using that same technology, but what's in our favor is that elephants don't only have the stereoscopic hearing, they've also got 4 seismic listening devices on the ground. So imagine you could add 4 extra ears to the ground to help you figure out where these sound signals are coming from. And this is really why it's been so effective for us. This gate design is running in Limpopo, and we've managed to capture a little video. I might have to skip through it a little bit. But we managed to capture a little video of them virtually running towards the gate. There they are. I'm going to try and mouse on my pocket. There they are. After we've played the sound, they were on the opposite side of this farm. It wasn't that far, but we also have new technology now. It was about 2 kilometers far. And the moment we play this sound, the elephants make an A-line to go towards this gate. So they know what's going on here. And also, I must also tell you that they didn't just do this from the start. We gently introduced this sound to them as they were trunk on a favorite food source, water, something that they were looking for. And now they seem to be extremely keen on going exactly to where we want them to go the moment they hear the sound. I'll just fast forward a little bit. So you can see there they are. And our gate is this tiny rickety gate over there. There it is. So they're going to funnel all the way through into that gate, into this other area. And it's just amazing, like it works. You know, now we know that we need to do more research. There's a lot of things on the cards. Declan is next. Declan's heard in Magic Hills is an opportunity for us to try and test sounds that might intrigue them without any habituation. It's a long shot. It's something I'm really keen to try and figure out. How can we intrigue them to actually move to sounds that they've not been habituated to? His herd is perfect for that. And then we've also spoken to a number of people in KZN that are looking for a mobile infrasound device to keep elephants away from potential conflict zones. That is actually been part of our errors in the trial, where we played sounds I thought they were going to love and they didn't, and they moved away from it. So it's actually easy to push them away from the sound source, but to get them to do this took a bit of time. So I was so inspired to hear about the Karija process, where a number of days after them dropping the fences, they started moving into new areas. So I think they want to move. It's one of their things. It's their jam. So the moment we give them the opportunity to do that, I think they'll take it. So now, the successes of this particular project has gotten a lot of interest. There was one particular very important organization called La Biennale di Venezia in Italy that invited us to come and exhibit in arguably the world's most important architecture exhibition. And Italy being a little bit too far for me to take my own speaker systems, we decided that we'll need to open ourselves up for new partnerships. And we partnered with this company called Ascendo Immersive Audio. And this company is just as crazy about infrasound as I am. What I mean by that is that over there is an 80-inch driver. It's an 80-inch driver with a medium-sized dog in front of it. So we're incredibly excited about what Ascendo could do for us and how we could use this technology in the future. Now, I've got a little video here of me just scanning our exhibit at La Biennale di Venezia, and this building is very, very special. There's architects from all over the world. I was surrounded by brains far bigger than my own, and I learned a lot. And what you can see here is 3 24-inch subwoofers. Just to give you an indication, what I've got here is a 21-inch subwoofer, and it pumps. But those 24-inch subwoofers are far beyond my own capabilities. Then we have a cymatic plate in the center of this exhibit, and it moves with the elephant sounds. So as the elephants rumble, you can see how effective they are with their seismic capabilities because it moves the soil that's on top of this plate. And then we have suspended over there a model of the type of speaker cabinet. These are all MIT, Harvard, Oxford students. That is an elephant chapel made from elephant dung bricks. We have another MIT project over here, which is all sustainable materials, leather made from spent coffee grains. Incredible stuff. There was over 700 exhibits as part of this, and it's running until the 23rd of November. So it actually is still running right now in Italy as I'm talking to you. And I have this very sound sample for you here today, so you can hear the rumbling that we took there to go and play through this building built in 1303. There are 4 spectrographs behind this structure that are created in an iris form. So a spectrograph is an XY graph that we've just turned into a circle, and now the bottom is the center, so 0 is the center in hertz, and you have your time scale as the iris, and then the frequencies are dissipating towards the higher end spectrum, which is the outer edge of this iris. So this over here is an elephant call, a clean elephant call. So you can see the bow-like structures over there and how the harmonics, once again, are built on top of that fundamental frequency. The second spectrograph is something that is very similar, although it contains the airflow, the birds, the insects of the actual environment. So this is more elephant talk that is in its actual natural environment. Then over here is my unique call sound that the elephants make an A-line to when they hear it. The inside lines there is the unique sound signature that was informed with by jazz. And the wide frequency spectrographs are these long lines, this kind of crosshair shape that comes out of that. That is the wideband frequencies that they hear that allow them to echolocate where the sound is coming from. And then the final spectrograph here is a composition of my own that contains infrasound that is both synthesized. I also have the capability now of playing infrasound with my bass guitar by pitching it all the way down, which you'll hear shortly, and also elephant speak, bio-acoustic properties like birdsong and also insects, And then conventional musical harmonies and other techniques. And the reason why this is important is because if it was not for the fact that I was a musician and a composer, I would never find the capabilities or the limitations of how to use these frequencies. And when it comes to a dead end for me, I delve into my own skill set to find a solution, which is once again the power of cross-pollinating with different skill sets.